I feel like you figured out when it's important to put the camera down and when it's important to pick it up.
If I am picking up the camera too much and if I'm putting too much emphasis on the photos, I'm not putting enough emphasis into those moments that I'm spending with my family. It's almost like I'm taking that moment away.
I feel like a lot of those people don't really know when to put the camera down.
And almost when you're looking at an image, it takes you back to your emotion at that moment. It's pretty much like you're capturing the emotion in that moment. And when you look at it, it just takes you right back.
The fact that we can actually capture a moment and then experience it later is kind of crazy.
You just kind of find your groove in it a little bit and know when to set boundaries. I think an important thing is knowing how to use the word no a little bit in this industry.
So you've chosen to capture the most special and delicate moments of our human lives with a camera and a lens. Why?
You know, I really don't think I realized how special those moments were until I started having my own. So my husband and I have been married like 8.5 years. And if it wasn't for the photographer that I had there for that day, I wouldn't remember half of the day because it happened so fast. And, you know, it's kind of the same thing with memories with your kids. I have 2 daughters, and if I'm not getting my camera out and capturing moments, you know, you're going to forget even just the details of that. And so knowing that in the back of my mind and knowing it's kind of a privilege for brides to be able to invite me into their space and be able to tell their story, it's really neat and it's really special, definitely.
I remember when I was younger, thinking back about moments I had with my family, I can think of a couple where I had the thought of the first time of like, okay, I really wish I had that memory saved in an image format, because right now it's just in my mind, and that kind of aspired to get to where I am today. Kind of grew and festered as I kept having moments that I wish I captured. Do you remember your first moment that you wish you would have captured, where you began to think, this would be great looking back now if I would have pictures or video of that?
So the one that comes to mind would be, I don't know if you've seen like Fresh 48 photos. It's like when someone has a baby in the hospital and then they have a photographer come in and get photos of like your newborn while you're in the hospital.
Yes. And
those are super intimate. I never had those photos of my first kid. And I never even thought of it until afterwards. And so now that's something that I do just for friends that are having babies. I'll come into their rooms and I'll take photos. And usually it's funny because they don't want photos at that time. You know, they're in the hospital bed and they're like, I don't want to remember this, but you really do.
Yes.
Because you forget a lot of that. And I wish I kind of had someone to capture those moments for me too. Because, you know, it's all a blur.
Yeah. And so is that like your main memory that comes to mind when you think now, or are there other memories as well that you think, I wish I had that moment?
I mean, really any memories with my kids, if I'm being honest, because it's hard to do both. It's hard to be in the moment and it's hard to be behind a camera capturing it because you kind of distance yourself when you do that from the moment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to get to where I'm doing a little bit of both just in my own family, because I spend so much time photographing, you know, my clients and their lives, and I'm trying to get better at actually capturing my own too.
Yeah.
So.
Have you figured out, this was hard for me, especially going on like mission trips and going overseas and things, and doing photography, video. Have you, at this age of your life now, feel like you figured out when it's important to put the camera down and when it's important to pick it up? And why I say that is, you know, you have these photographers who are super trigger happy. You know, they'll just shoot. But when it comes to you know, a work life or even just life, an experience versus capturing the moment, I feel like a lot of those people don't really know when to put the camera down. And so you just live life through a viewfinder and you never really experienced the huge moment that you could have had on top of the mountain because you were looking through a viewfinder the whole time. So do you feel like you've strike that balance? I know it is hard. Because obviously, I've like I said, I've been there before too. So what do you think?
No, it really is hard because, like I was saying in my own life, I'm wanting to capture those moments because I know how important they are. But I think that I've gotten better about actually be able to enjoy them and live in that moment. Like if we're going on a trip, I'll spend one afternoon with the camera. Then the rest of the days, I'm actually enjoying, time with my family. And so it's kind of like a balance that you kind of have to set for yourself and like a boundary with that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And so like if you're really thinking about it, what are your boundaries when it comes to that?
If I am picking up the camera too much and if I'm putting too much emphasis on the photos, I'm not putting enough emphasis into those moments that I'm spending with my family. It's almost like I'm taking that moment away with my family a little bit. And so, yes, I want to remember the moment, but the whole point of having that moment is to enjoy it with family. So you just kind of have to know, where your limit is a little bit.
And so it's just when you say too much, it's really just like you're feeling it out as you go throughout the day, the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I think it's also cool to talk about, we say capturing moments. And I don't know, in my head, I kind of think of that as like, it's almost like this weird not time travel, but the fact that we can actually capture a moment and then experience it later is kind of crazy. Have you thought about that on a deep level before?
Oh, no, definitely. Especially with weddings. You think about that nostalgia that it brings. And almost when you're looking at an image, just like my own wedding prints that I have around my house, when I look at that image, it takes you back to your emotion at that moment. It's pretty much like you're capturing the emotion in that moment. And when you look at it, it just takes you right back.
Is that why you do it?
A little bit.
Yeah.
You're just documenting the moment, and it's just, there's no other career, in my opinion. I've done a few different things, and there's nothing else I've ever done that really feels the same way. It's really special to be able to do that.
If you have like a big why, step back for a second and think big picture. What's the big why behind photography for you? I mean, and some people, it takes a lifetime to figure out that why. They just know they love it and just kept their attention for a long time. Do you feel like you've processed that enough right now to where you know the big why?
I don't know. That's a hard question because, when you get started and you're like, oh, I like this, but you hit a point where you can't imagine yourself doing anything else. And that's kind of almost the why behind why I still do it and why I'm chasing after that and going all in with it, because I really genuinely feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So
you say you feel like you've hit that point to where you think you can't think of doing anything else. Have you ever hit a point where you had to think, oh, I may not be able to do this anymore, or this may not be an option? What else am I going to do? And that kind of like validified what you've been doing even more. Have you had a moment like that?
As far as photography, I think every photographer kind of hits a slump at some point, and it's kind of like it's a dry season or something. Maybe you had a horror story of some sort. And you kind of question yourself a little bit, especially that first year or two. You really question, like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, am I good enough? A little bit. But if you're able to push forward through that slump, that's really where you're going to start making it a little bit. And it's hard. It's a process. Like, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you talked about weddings briefly. You said, that's one of the moments you capture. And when you think about capturing those moments and looking back, you do feel those emotions or similar emotions. I think it's hard to say you feel all the emotions, right? It's just difficult because I look back at my wedding and I don't even know what I felt, but I can begin to think about what I may have been feeling. So it's also cool to explore like the mystery behind what was this person thinking. I think that's super cool about history when we look at photos as well. Tangent, whatever. But so let's talk about some of your wedding experiences that you had. Like, how many weddings do you think you've shot up until this point in March 14th, 2025? How many weddings do you think you've shot?
Okay, so last year, 2024, was my first year actually going all forward with weddings. And so I myself shot 13 in 1 year, which was last year, which is really good for a first year. And then I was second shooting for other photographers out of state, and I was attending styled shoots, and I was just really keeping busy with it all a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, what are some of the highlights that you've had, some of the moments that really made it feel like, okay, after spending 8 hours of doing this, or 4 hours, 6 hours, that moment made it all worth it other than the paycheck?
My moment to me would be when a bride texts me. I've had brides text me the night of the wedding. It's a post-reception. They should be, enjoying married life a little bit. And they'll text me and just kind of express gratitude for everything I've done for them that day. Because to me, I'm there to be the photographer, but I'm also there to support them and make their day as easy for them and as great and amazing for them as possible. And so to be able to know that my brides kind of feel that and sense that I'm like genuine and I'm there to, support them, that's kind of,
So it really feels like you thrive off of emotions, like capturing these moments and really making people feel a certain emotion. Is that right?
A little bit.
Okay. I mean, that's for me too. Some people are more technically, like they get the fulfillment from the creative element from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people like that. Do you share any of that?
I mean, I do in a sense because this is a creative industry. And so you kind of have to have that spark a little bit. But I think what I do is I'm really in touch with my clients' emotions and their story of the day. That's my absolute favorite part, is being able to support them and, be along with them during that whole entire process. Because that whole day is just an array of emotions, from getting ready and anticipation to ceremony and then the celebration at the reception, and being able to experience all those emotions with them. It's, it's amazing.
So you said you're in touch with them. How do you get in your client's head? Like, what does that process look like to be able to sense, okay, they may like this. Okay, this may stress the bride out. Like, what does that process look like to really understand who you're working with and what they like or don't like? Because a lot of people don't think about weddings as far as like a planning element, even for the photographer. Like, you may have the same deliverables every time, but you do have a different client.
Mm-hmm. So part of that process, what I do is I set up multiple consultations before the wedding so I can, first know their goals and how they want their day to go. And that's also how I get a sense of their personality and their normal. And so on the wedding day, you can really sense like tension or if they're stressed out, and you can comfort them in some way, because by that point, I already kind of know them as a person a little bit. And it's funny because as a photographer, it's like you feel kind of distant because you're the one capturing the moments, but you're also right there with them the whole day. There's really no one else that is right alongside that bride from sunup to sundown that whole day. And so you're seeing every single emotion that they feel and, feeling that yourself a little bit.
Yeah. So one thing that I've seen become more and more popular, this is especially amongst like famous people more recently, is elopements. And I'm curious of what your thought is of why that's been so popular. As of recently, within the last 3 years, I just feel like that's a lot. Like people are leaning more and more to going that way. Why do you think that is?
I hate to say it, but it was a COVID thing for me, just from what I saw, because during that time, you couldn't really have a big wedding. You couldn't get all your family together and invite, grandma and great grandma and people like that, because they weren't coming together as much. But people were still wanting to get married. And so they were choosing to kind of go, the untraditional route of elopements. And then it just, kept on going a little bit. But I also see a lot of elopements now. But to me, an elopement is, just bride, groom, officiant, and photographer. What I see a lot now are what I would call micro weddings. And so it's kind of the same feel as an elopement. It could be in the mountains at a state park or something of the sort. But you're still having maybe 25 guests. You're still inviting family. And those are really popular now, too, from what I'm seeing. And I think it has a lot to do with the intimacy of that moment, and they're wanting it to just be their absolute closest friends and family. They're not wanting to have a big show with it. Not that a traditional wedding is a big show, but they're wanting to focus on the ones that have been there for their whole story already and to celebrate with those people. And being able to document that story is really fun and special.
How many people are typically at those micro weddings?
I would say usually around 10, 15, 25. I mean, they're smaller. A lot of them don't have even groomsmen, bridesmaids. It's usually just like bride and groom. But they're really special. I mean, and you can feel kind of the intimacy from that and just their closest friends and family surrounding them. It's really neat.
Yeah. Talking about your wedding between you and your husband, What kind of spectrum did y'all fall on when thinking about weddings? Because I know a lot of couples, like for instance, me and my wife, we were definitely on the opposite side.
Mm-hmm.
She was more small, intimate, and I was like, no, like all the people as big as we can make it. So where did y'all fall on either side?
Well, honestly, we wanted to run away and get married. We wanted to do at that time would have been a true elopement where you are going away like to the ocean beach somewhere and it's just the two of you. That was what we wanted to do. We didn't end up doing that because family wanted to be there, but we still had, I guess, what you would call like the micro wedding. We had maybe 40 guests. It was kind of pushing that a little bit, but it was pretty traditional wedding. But I would still call it like a micro wedding because it was pretty intimate. It wasn't, it wasn't like a huge celebration.
Looking back, do you think you would have done anything differently for your wedding?
I would have went to the beach. Yeah. I would have done the elopement.
Yeah. And I think so for me too. I think I would have leaned, now looking back, I probably would have leaned more on what she wanted as a smaller wedding. Just because now when you really think about it, it's like, how much does it matter? And I mean, and also to be honest, like a lot of the people that we did have in our wedding, because we did end up going a little bit, a normal size wedding. Maybe 100 people. I don't know.
That's like average.
Yeah, average one. And so a lot of those people, I look back at our video photo of, I don't even talk to them anymore. Mm-hmm. They're not even a part of my life anymore. The last time I talked to them was probably a wedding, And so now knowing that, I'm like, okay, I probably would have opted for a more personalized experience for me, her, and our extended families, And so, I don't know, maybe not elopement. Also, I do want to talk about this too. Elopement always has kind of sounded a little bit negative for a while. It's like cheaping out. Mm-hmm. Have you kind of sensed that connotation on it?
I think at first, but I think now that people see kind of what elopements can be, especially if you're doing an adventure elopement, those can be more expensive than a traditional wedding if you're going to have even a big wedding, because these people are going to Iceland, Alaska, all these beautiful, beautiful places, and they're taking helicopters and they're, going all out on exactly what they want. And so, no, it's not traditional, but I would definitely say there shouldn't be a negative connotation with it at all. For me, it's whatever the couple wants and however they want their story to be told. So.
Yeah, for sure. Let's actually talk about some of your elopement shooting stories. Can you kind of tell me like some highlights of some you've done? And also, how many have you done?
So last year, I think 13 of the weddings I did, 5 of them were elopements. And I kind of grouped micro weddings into elopements because they're kind of that same feeling a little bit. The last one I did at the end of the year was at Mount Magazine. And I had never been there before, and I heard like the views were beautiful, and it's Arkansas, so of course it's beautiful. But the wedding day, this huge rainstorm came, and it was the foggiest I've ever seen it. Like you could not see 5 feet in front of you. But those photos turned out to be some of the dreamiest photos that you could have imagined, because that fog that did not go away, and everyone was kind of freaking out a little bit about it in the rain. It was absolutely beautiful and stunning. And so the bride was super happy with the photos she got. And to me, that's all that mattered at that point. But all the other elopements had sunshine and, were beautiful. But that one kind of sticks with me because in that moment, you're kind of worried about, these photos aren't going to turn out, or, what if my gear gets, drenched or something happens, but everything worked out perfectly. And so it's kind of, refreshing a little bit.
Talking about Mount Magazine and living in Fort Smith, have you always lived in Fort Smith, by the way?
No, it's been 10 years now.
Okay. Where were you before?
Up by Harrison, Arkansas.
Oh, okay. Yes, I do know where that is.
By Branson.
Yes. And I've been told not to go there.
I almost didn't even say
it. Just saying it. Sorry if you're from Harrison.
Did
and you're
you see
listening.
me pause a second?
I was like, oh. You know what is so funny, though? This is a real story. I actually was going to Springfield, Missouri. Yeah, Springfield, Missouri. And maybe 2 miles before I got to Harrison, I really had to use the bathroom. And I was like, I'm not stopping. So I just held I drove all the way through, got to the other side of the border, drove 10 more miles. I'm like, I think I'm good. And then I stopped at a gas station. I just have heard horror stories, and I'm so sorry if someone lives there and I'm making it sound bad. Wait, you say you're from there. So
yeah. So I was raised there. So no, I mean, there's going to be, what I would tell anyone is there's going to be mean people anywhere you go. There's mean people here in Fort Smith. It's the same way in Harrison. But there's so many kind, genuine people there too that welcome anyone that's traveling through. And so it's funny, kind of that stigma that it has a little bit.
Know. Okay, so you've been here for 10 years. The reason why I was asking is because if you've been in Arkansas, I'm curious of what you think about how Arkansas has provided beautiful scenery for you that's super close to Fort Smith. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like photographer dream in Arkansas really is Fort Smith, just because you have so many different types of areas that you can go get different shoots from. I feel like the only thing we're actually missing is like a beach that's close by. So what do you think? Like, how's that experience being with nature?
I have clients that are inquiries that will come in and they're wanting to do an elopement. And I have a whole list of locations just within an hour's drive of Fort Smith in all directions. And it is really breathtaking, some of these locations. And I mean, they're cliffside locations overlooking mountains, because I'll have clients that say, oh, we wanted to go to Colorado, but, budgeting or whatever it may be. And Arkansas has so many beautiful adventure, I would call it adventure elopement locations, because you're kind of hiking to these locations a little bit, and they're all, within driving range from Fort Smith. So I agree, definitely.
Have you had any kind of horror stories happen with this hiking and photography that you're talking about?
Not yet. I don't want to jinx myself, but I've, no, I mean, I take precautions a little bit.
Okay.
But I try to get back to the car before dark. I don't want to be in the woods at dark.
Yeah. Well, I mainly meant like, I don't know, like typically a lot of these women are walking in like fancier shoes, so tripping and on their ankle, that type of thing.
I have most of my brides bring hiking boots. So that's the key there. So they'll change if they want to change into other shoes, whenever we get to like that cliffside location, they'll put on like their wedding shoes.
Yeah.
And so,
what's some of your favorite hiking destinations to go shoot at that you've done so far?
Honestly, one of my favorites is Devil's Den, because there's so many different locations all in walking distance, so many different trails. And then they have the water. I mean, they have that creek there. There's just so many different little spots there that we can just walk around, and it's beautiful there. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but do you actually remember the campsite that you typically go and park to and walk from? I don't remember. I just drive. Is it past, like, do you go over the bridge and then it's right there by the dam? Yeah. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, it's so cool there because you can take photos right there in the creek, literally like where you park, the creek is, and it's typically empty. Every time I've been, it's empty. Yeah. And it's just beautiful rocks. So I can imagine beautiful photos from there. And then you can go hike up and you have the summit there. Have you done photos on the summit? Because that is a commitment to hike all the way to the summit for photos. It's not too far. It's like a couple miles. Yeah, but like I'm imagining. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I put all my stuff in a backpack, and so whenever I get up there, like I'll kind of unload and get everything out. And I'm not. It's not more so not you that I'm like that's crazy. It's more you convincing your client to hike. I think it's like 3 miles, maybe. Maybe it's 5 miles. I don't know. There's a 5 mile option, I think. And then I think to get to the summit, it's maybe like 3 miles. It would be very difficult for me to convince a middle-aged woman to hike up here just to do photos. They're like, I'm going to be sweaty. My makeup's not going to be ready. Have you done that? How do you do that? I kind of just advise a lot of brides to also bring a backpack. So if they're worried about makeup, we'll bring like a little makeup thing. And then I help them do their makeup whenever we get up there, touch up their hair, repin their dress. And it's kind of like the same thing of a wedding. I'm there to support them every step of the way. And so anything I can do to reassure them, that's what I'm there for. Yeah. And normally everyone that's wanting to do kind of an adventure elopement knows what they're getting themselves into a little bit too. So yeah, it's true. So they're typically like prepared athletically, all those different things. Yeah, that's fun. Have you done a wedding up there actually? Like on like an adventure elopement? Like have you been to one where you did have to hike like 3 miles in and that's where they actually officiated
The wedding?
Yes. But it was a pure elopement. So just a bride and a groom. So that also makes it easier because you're thinking about if you're wanting to do a micro wedding and you're thinking about grandma having to make the hike up there, that's when I would advise choosing a location that's not, even a mile hike, that is all flat and maybe has a pathway. And, so when I have brides that are looking for different locations, I'll look into all those things and be able to provide like the best option for them. So.
Okay, so you said you have kiddos, right? How many kids? How
2.
Okay.
So my oldest turns 8 this weekend. Well, the day of recording this weekend.
Oh, cool.
And then my other one is 3.5.
Okay. So I've heard you mentioned to me before, but how do you actually do all of this, work these long hours? Because, doing a wedding, at least for me, I'm typically getting there early to shoot the venue, shoot all the stuff before people get there, maybe around like 2 sometime. I've even gotten there at 1, and I'm not leaving till 10. How do you manage that? Also taking care of kids. And then I know that you said one of your kids has a disability. Mm-hmm. So how do you manage all of that? And also feel free to elaborate on what that experience was like when you found out about your kid having a disability.
So I have to brag on my husband because I don't think that I know for a fact I wouldn't be able to go away for a whole weekend if it wasn't for him being able to help, the load with the kids and the house and everything that goes into that. Because when I'm doing a wedding on a weekend, that's pretty much 24 hours for me because I'll be there at 9 in the morning and I sometimes won't get home till 2 a.m. if I'm not staying overnight somewhere. And so if it wasn't for him, picking that up for me and doing that, I definitely know that I wouldn't be able to commit. So I'm really thankful for that. But as far as, just kids in general and work-life balance, you just kind of find your groove in it a little bit and know when to set boundaries. I think an important thing is knowing how to use the word no a little bit in this industry. I think a lot of photographers, especially starting out, want to take every single opportunity they can, even if it doesn't fit them or their lifestyle and family needs. And so being able to know and set your boundaries and what you can actually do and can't commit to, that's kind of the key in that. But last year, it was about halfway through wedding season, we did get the diagnosis that Sarah, who's our youngest, was diagnosed with infantile idiopathic scoliosis. And in layman's terms, that's like scoliosis in a toddler for no known reason. And so having that and knowing that it kind of rocks your world a little bit when your kid gets a diagnosis like that. And I think when people hear the word like scoliosis, they're like, oh, like I have a little scoliosis, or like I know so-and-so. And it's not really the same for a toddler. To put it in perspective, like that statistic is 0.01% chance of happening. And so like I said, like that rocked our world a little bit. And it kind of, like we were talking about earlier, it kind of makes you stop and think like, can I keep doing this? Can I keep going away for weekends at a time and committing myself, to my brides? And again, if it wasn't for my husband being able to, help with everything that goes into that, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And it was November we got her prosthetic, and that was November. If you know anything about wedding industry, fall is like peak go time. We're back to back weddings every other weekend or every weekend. And while all that was going on, I had 4 weddings back to back. And of course, they were booked, prior to this diagnosis. And I was actually in Boston, Massachusetts for a wedding. And I was gone for 4 days for that wedding. And Sarah, our youngest, was going in for her MRI that following morning. And I was flying back to be there in time for that. And it was like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. Okay. But that's kind of what I felt like. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to watch it so you can understand
if you've seen it before.
Because that was quite literally what happened to me trying to get back in time for that. And so it was very chaotic at first. And I kept hitting those moments and asking, like, can I keep doing this? And being able to just, keep going forward. That's, it was a lot of work, and there was good days and bad days. And we finally just, found our groove a little bit with that and kind of know our own balance with it all. But it's, any working mom or any entrepreneur mom would agree that having kids and being able to run a business is a lot of work. And let alone you start to add on like disabilities and things like that. It's just being able to find your balance is the key in that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Okay, everybody, guess what? We are now diving into what is called the second layer. This is a time where we kind of pull back. We've worked and we pull back the first layer, knowing who you are in your profession, what you do, why you do. And hopefully we got all those answers. If you didn't, go back and listen to the first half of this. Now we're going to actually dive into some more personal things, asking questions that make you ponder or think. So first question, are you ready?
I am ready.
If I had been quietly watching your journey over the past 2 years, how would I describe the person who sits in front of me today?
If I could sum it up in one word for myself, I'd like to say resilient, because it's like anyone's life, you feel almost like there's constantly something going on. It's I describe it like standing in an ocean. It's like a wave hits. You're like, oh, that was, and then you're fine. And then another wave hits. And so that's, especially with like Sarah's diagnosis last year, huge wave, and still being able to get up and just keep moving forward. And when I think back to the year before that, one of the biggest waves was, I don't know if you knew this, I worked like in corporate world for over 5 years. And it was July of 2023, I was part of a layoff. And so that kind of rocks your world a little bit, unexpected. And that was also the time that I decided to go all in for the wedding photography and started investing in myself, because when something like that happens, you're kind of like, what else do I have to lose?
Yeah.
A little bit motivates you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, like those waves hit. And once you're able to get up and just keep going, I'd call that a little resilient. But
how would your daily life look different if money was no longer a concern?
that one's really hard. I feel like a lot of people won't admit that money is like a priority. They're like, oh, my family and everything else that kind of goes in order. But if you look at kind of like your actions and how you live your life, it kind of disagrees a little bit. Yeah. And I feel like money's always in the back of our minds, no matter like what we're doing. And so it's hard to even imagine. I've been working since I was 14 years old, and there was never a moment of time that like I wasn't working for a paycheck or doing something. And even when I was a stay-at-home mom after I had our oldest, I would stay home and I would learn how to sew, or I was painting again. But I would always try to monetize it. It's like, oh, I'll start an Etsy shop, or I'll start doing art shows again. And I think if I didn't have that kind of ingrained in the back of my mind a little bit, I'd be able to enjoy those hobbies just as hobbies. Because now I feel like when someone does something like, oh, I'm good at this, they instantly say, I can monetize off of this. When really we should just be able to enjoy like, oh, I'm good at this, and that be it. So
yes, for sure, that makes sense. I think speaking on what you talk about, a lot of people think about retirement, right? And that's one thing that I think about. And I think, what is retirement when you think about how people do it? A lot of times it's these people working their whole lives, putting back money from their check so that they can retire. And then when they retire, no one ever really retires. I know very few people. I do know people who retire. For instance, my wife's grandparents, they actually seem to have retired. But most people go do that thing they've been wanting to do their whole lives. I'm like, that kind of, in my head as a creative, and I get that everyone lives a different lifestyle. I'm like, I'm not going to wait until I'm at the end of my years of living to live the lifestyle I want to live. I can literally do that now responsibly. And so I think as, not being an employee, it allows me the opportunities to do that. Being a contractor, I can have a little bit more flexibility on my life. So I think for me, when I think about how will money change my life, one, it depends on how much money. Because like you said, people try to say that money isn't super important, especially in the Christian community. Like it almost is looked down upon for you to be wealthy or try to achieve wealth. But I think it's one, as we all know, it's not about the money amount. It's more so about what you're going to do with the money. Why do you want the money in the first place? And what's your heart behind it? But two, I also do think it is a lie to not desire. I think it's completely okay to desire to have financial security. It's okay. It should be okay. I just think that to a certain point, once you get enough money, it doesn't matter as much anymore. I think up to about $80,000 here in Arkansas, in Fort Smith. If you make about $80,000, I think it will make your life happier if you haven't been there before, for sure. After that point, I don't know how much happier you're gonna really get, from that. I think you begin to ask the big questions. What is life about? What am I actually doing? You're running a rat race, it feels like, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, definitely. It's like people are working so hard, but they're missing those moments in between. You're working so hard for moments later down the road. Well, you could be enjoying, some time that you have right now. And I think a lot of moms are kind of talking about that right now. And I could go back to work, but why do that when I could enjoy these moments right now?
100%.
So,
yeah, for sure. If your soul had an age, what would it be and why?
So I think I'm really like an elderly woman. If I'm talking about like inner self.
Okay.
Because I think about like, so I love to like garden. I love chickens. I love like sipping coffee in the morning and nobody talking to me and get cranky at the grocery store. Like I think that
That's so funny.
I'm like an elderly woman. That's, my inner self a little bit.
That's funny. Okay. Next question. If you lost everything tomorrow, what's the first thing that you would do?
I think this would be the same thing for everyone. Like whenever I see something, someone's house burns down or something awful has happened, they just immediately talk about how grateful they are for their family and just having that security in them. Because beyond that, if you're talking about materialistic items, like none of that matters here. And so just knowing that you have your family, like what more do you need at that point? And so just being grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, the world we live in, that seems to be the case more and more, that we're actually like, this question to us is like a thought, but this is so many people's reality, like even within the past few months, with everything happening in LA, and it seems like places just over and over again keep flooding. I was just looking at a place last night. This is nuts. Detroit, maybe, where something happened and it flooded the neighborhood. And then overnight, I mean, it was, about as tall as this table here. It flooded the neighborhood, and then overnight it froze. That is insane. So there are car alarms going off. I just can't imagine. So literally, these people are losing everything. And they, like, what do you do? A lot of them, I watch a lot of content creators, and a lot of them have been, unfortunately, in some of these scenarios, and they just cry. They just cry, and they're thankful, and they come back to exactly what you said. I'm thankful that I have my family. I'm thankful that they're okay, because we can get another house, we can get another car, we can buy more clothes, but family, especially when you find your family, that only happens once. Definitely. You only get to have those memories, those moments captured once, and if you don't capture them, then I feel like a lot of people experience regret at those moments. Oh man, I wish I would have done this more. I wish I would have done this. It's typically all family related or people related. So I would agree with you, my friend. Last question. What's the one thing you wish more people would know about you?
Well, I'm kind of an open book, so it's hard a little bit that people don't know certain things. But I would say that I have like a heart for like the arts, like, and I'm talking fine arts. So my mother started putting me in private art lessons starting in kindergarten. And so I was always involved in arts in some way. And I'm very competitive by nature. And so that turned into me doing art shows all the time and competitions, graphic design competitions. I went to college for fine art, and that ended up going towards graphic design. And that's how I ended up in Fort Smith, actually, was going to UFS for graphic design. And I think I was about 3/4 of the way done with my degree, and I switched majors.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds about right.
I took a psychology class, and I was like, oh, I really like this. And so I ended up with a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in sociology. And now I'm a photographer. So that, but I used that degree. On the wedding day.
Yeah.
And it's very useful. But no, so and I love going to like the Regional Art Museum here in Fort Smith is great. Van Buren has a good one that opened up. And a lot in Northwest Arkansas, like Crystal Bridges, and being involved and supporting local artists and community to me is very important, because I feel like there's not a huge emphasis on that, or maybe there is in Fort Smith. Fort Smith is good.
Yeah, I feel like, when it comes to creative arts, like even some of the, I don't know, I just feel like it's artistic overall. Like you look at the murals, obviously, with the Unexpected Project, then you look at RAM. But even if you look at architecture, like, the Marshall's Museum, the design of that place is just crazy. Like, I look at that building over and over again, and every single time I feel just as much creative excitement. Whenever I want to feel or really get in the creative spot, I go there to the coffee shop and I just sit and look at the river, and I just feel like I feel like the creative juices would just flow more there because I'm in a creative environment. And I can't wait for Fort Kids to happen, because that's going to be way cooler, because then I can go and sit and bring Asher and he's able to play and I'm able to maybe jot down some notes as I'm working or whatever. That'd be so cool. I'm excited about that. Okay, you made it and you didn't cry.
No.
We're going to actually jump into some quick would you rathers right quick. Okay. So, are you ready?
I am ready.
Would you rather have a rewind button or a pause button for the rest of your life?
That is a really hard question. If I could choose the moment, I would say pause. Is that a good answer?
Well, I don't know. It's your answer, though.
That's not the right answer. I think pause would be good, because right now, like, the girls are young. Everyone says like, oh, they grow up so fast, and they do. They really do. And I know that I would miss them being little. So if I could just pause this moment and, things are good right now. And so I choose pause.
The only thing about when you pause, I feel like it makes those moments less special because it was so special. Like when I think about a moment being special, what makes it special is the fact that it may not happen again.
Was a moment. You're right.
So I don't know. That's why I was like, I don't know.
That is hard.
It's kind of like thinking about time travel. Like, do you really want to get into that, because then you start, I don't know, then things get relative to what special is. Like, what is even a moment at that point?
No, exactly.
It's just something that happened and now it's happening every day. It's like we think about, like if you ever traveled and done missions and things before, when I think about the amenities that we have today, I'm super unconscious of how blessed we are in America until I go somewhere where it is a rarity to have some of the things that we have. I think it's the same way. If I were to pause, then I wouldn't really be able to even notice that I have it.
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah. I don't know. That's just me.
No, that's up.
That's just me. Would you rather always have to sing instead of talk, or dance instead of walk? Let me read that again.
Okay.
Would you rather have to sing instead of talk, or dance instead of walk?
Dance instead of walk. 100%.
Okay. Sing. Why? Because you can't sing.
Part of yes, that's a big part of it. If you're dancing around everywhere, you must be happy. So I'm with you. I never see a sad person dancing.
That's true. Could you imagine though, someone like just full out dancing but crying? Like,
they say that's what you're supposed to do. Have you heard that? Like if you're having like an episode of some sort and you're supposed to like dance it out.
Oh, yes. Yeah, there are actual there's like groups that you can do this with and stuff, I think. Yeah. They're kind of weird though. I mean, I apologize. I don't mean to call anyone weird, but I'm just saying. Would you rather give up coffee forever or be able to watch movies again? I don't know what I mean by again, or never be able to watch movies again. Yeah, excuse me. Let me reread that. Would you rather give up coffee forever or never be able to watch movies again?
I would never be able to watch a movie. I think I told you about this when I came in this morning. I could not give up coffee. I choose coffee over movies.
See, I love coffee. You have to understand. I love coffee. But movies? No way I can give that up. There's no way. I don't know. It's just like for me, when I think about getting outside of a funk that I'm in or diving more into a funk that I'm in to get me out of it quicker, movies do it for me. Like I can pick a specific movie and help me fully fill out that emotion and get over it. And it's just hard for me to do that in other areas because movies you watch a movie to feel a certain way. That's really what it is. And like some people, like we were talking about, some people use that with photography. They can look at photos, they can look at art, they can just feel a certain way. For me, it's movies, it's video content. So I have to have the movies. Yeah.
I mean, that would make sense. Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. Question number 4. Would you rather only be able to take black or white photos for the rest of your career, or only be able to shoot in extreme oversaturated colors?
Black and white, definitely. I don't know if you've seen my Instagram lately, but it is full of black and white images. I try not to post as many black and white photos so I can kind of even things out, so it's not just over the top. But I love black and white photos, a little grain, on there, and like the emotion that you see when you look at an image, like unmatched.
I feel like it's coming back too. Like that style is coming back. What I noticed though is I never really understood or knew there was a big difference in the way you could take a black or white photo, because some of them are like deep and blacks, and then some of them are very raised.
Yes.
And I don't know, like you have to know what you're looking at to tell there's a difference. Which style do you lean more towards?
Kind of the lighter, the more raised, because to me that's kind of like a true film black and white. Film to me, or the kind that I like, doesn't have as much contrast in that, and so that's kind of the route I go with my editing.
For show. Number 5, would you rather have the perfect camera but a terrible computer to edit on, or a top of the line editing setup but a budget camera?
That's really hard. I would honestly say a top of the line editing software, because, and I've heard this said before, it doesn't matter what you shoot with if you know what you're doing. And so I've had the crappy laptop before and the nice camera, and that combo, you're going to drive yourself insane trying to edit on that laptop, the dinosaur laptop. So
yeah, for sure.
Once I made the jump to like the one I use now, it makes all the difference in the world. So yeah. Crappy camera.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's so many moms too talking about that in Fort Smith, those soccer moms. You're out there, you're listening to this podcast now. And they have the T3i Canon sitting in their closet.
The Rebel is the original.
I know.
The Rebel
I feel like it
OG.
was the T3 specifically. Like I see that so often. I have people text me, "Hey, do you want this camera? What is it?" It's a T3.
I have one sitting in my closet.
Really?
It's actually in my closet.
Oh my gosh. I'm not surprised. Are you a soccer mom?
Yes.
There we go. Hey, but seriously, if any one of you do have those cameras, I'm opening up an internship program. So send them my way. Give them to me. Donate them so that your kids can learn how to do photo video.
Awesome.
I'm going to try to do that this summer.
No, that's awesome.
Photography, video camp. I don't know. I think it'd be fun.
No, that's needed here.
Yes. Okay. Wrapping it up. Can you please tell people how they can connect with you on social media, or do you have any announcements or just anything you would like to say to the people?
Yeah. So you can always find my website at paigekerteszphotography.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Paige Kertesz Photography. And I'm still taking inquiries for the end of 2025, and I'm starting to book out for 2026 already. And I would just love to chat. I set up consultations and we can go get coffee or do a Zoom call because I have out-of-state brides a lot. And I'm just really excited for this 2025 year. So I'm always open and free to answer any questions and inquiries.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah.